Okay, I'm not sure if I'm focused in very well, but I'll just try to do the best I can here. We'll talk about a subject Jesus spoke about, Matthew 7:14. Uh, actually starts in verse 13. Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that lead to destruction, and many there be which go thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which lead to life, and few be there that find it. The major reason for that, few be there that find it, because salvation is of the heart. Salvation is not of the mouth. Salvation is not of a building. Salvation is not of an organization. You can't get important enough that you automatically go into heaven. I don't care what family you're in. I don't care if you are the Jew's Jew. That is not what gets you to heaven. Amen. And this is what it's talking about. It's talking about making your way to heaven, getting into heaven. How do you do it? That's what it's talking about. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the deception. I don't want to talk about the basics of grace, because grace is how that we get in. Excuse me. Allergies. It's an allergy. Okay. But there's a lot of things that gets into that grace that can knock you out. Okay. And can you backslide? Briefly, let me address it. Okay. Go to the book of James. If I can find the book of James. It's Hebrews and James. And turn over to the very last three verses in the book of James. Okay. James 5:17 or 18 starts here. Okay, and they're talking about Elijah praying and gave rain. And let's read it, okay, in verse 18. So I can, and it leads into this subject. And he prayed again, and the heaven gave rain, and the earth brought forth her fruit. Brethren, if any of you do err from truth, and one convert him. Now listen to who this is addressed to, brethren. That's Christian people. Those, you can't be a brethren unless you have the blood applied. Okay? If any of you do err from the truth, and one convert him. Got that? Let him know that he which converteth the sinner. Alright? He was a brethren. He went to a sinner. From the error of his way shall save a soul from death, and shall hide a multitude of sin. Okay, so he went from a brethren to a sinner, from needing his soul saved. You got that? So that should pretty much end the argument whether you can backslide or not. Okay, so I'm really tempted to get into that grace thing, but I really don't want to do that, because I want to talk about an aspect of this. Straight is the gate and narrow is the way that leads into life. Why is it narrow? Well, because so many people are fixed on the importance of the flesh. The church that I grew up in when I was young is a very prominent church, and they are a strong, big organization all over the United States. I grew up in Virginia, and the organization here is here in Indiana, so that tells you how big they are. But some of the people that I met in this organization, which I really don't want to mention, are so religious that they play politics within the organization of the church, and politics should have no place. If the love of God is in an organization, the only politics you need to play is the righteousness of Christ. You really don't need any other rule. And that rule is fair for everybody. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Neighbor being the one standing next to you. And that's why Jesus was saying here that it's hard to make it in. It's hard to make it in. Narrow is the way that leadeth unto life. The few that be there that find it. But now let me say this along with that, okay? Once you find it, it's easy. It's hard to find, but once you find it, it's so precious you'll never let go of it. You understand. Once you get the understanding that love is the key to heaven, literally is the key to heaven. You love everything that God is about. You love everything. You get into His Word, you study His Word. His Word becomes a part of you, becomes a part of me. And that's what Christ was talking about. It's hard. It's a hard thing because you have to crucify your flesh in order to just get it. You have to understand that Christ is the way. He is the only way. And this way that Christ is causes you to humble yourself when you normally would want your pride take over and be boastful and fight back. But this thing says the Spirit of God checks your heart and says that's not godlike. And you say to yourself, well, I got to make a choice here, whether I want this or whether I want that. A great way to put this is something I've talked about before. When I was making a decision whether I would want to be a part of God or in heaven or be a part of the world, I heard about this fella who had hurt this little girl, and I knew him, and I was mad, and I was going to get up and go straighten this fellow out. And I was headed for the door, and the Spirit of God checked my heart, spoke to my heart, and says, you can do that if that's what you want. You can do that, but you can't have that and what God is about at the same time. Remember, Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Said, turn the other cheek. Violence is not how you get things done in God. What about war? That's a whole other subject. A country needs to be defended. Okay? But this is what I'm saying. It's hard. It's hard to do those things which are necessary to please God, knowing that God is a loving God, expects such and such things out of you. And the Lord wants us to come and to get a relationship and work out our way. Not work out our way as far as making it into heaven, but work out our way in our relationship with who God is in us, then we can grow and become great. And in that process of working your way out, you become closer to God. And a lot of people says, well, people that believe in backsliding can't tell you exactly where it is that they backslide. Well, yes, you can. It's easy. Salvation is of the heart. When you decide in your heart you don't want nothing else to do with God, you're in a backslidden position, and you're in danger of going to hell. Okay, all right. God bless. I've said a lot. Thank you for joining me. See you again next time with another great subject across the Middle Ministry.